John McCloy, former CFR chairman for 31 years, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of War, former Chase Bank Chief Executive Officer, second ever President of the World Bank, former legal counsel to IG Farman, and former member of the Warren Commission, was quoted as saying, "Whenever we needed a new man, in brackets for a government position, we just thumbed through the roll of council members and put through a call to New York." Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, or welcome to the channel, and airing in a couple of seconds will be the third and final part in our series on the Council on Foreign Relations, which we will call the CFR moving forward, because I ain't about saying that long-ass name every time I'm talking about them.
I don't think so. Homie, don't play that.
Go watch parts 1 and 2 to get a proper introduction on this semi-secret organization and how they have and are affecting your everyday life. I know what you're thinking, the CFR isn't affecting my life. Yeah, it is, you're wrong.
Still, could be worse.
At least you're not this guy.
Name something that follows the word pork.
You pine.
That's why you should keep watching and go watch parts 1 and 2 to learn more about this organization that is guaranteed affecting your life that you didn't even know about. You thought the World Economic Forum was all there was to know about who really runs the world? Anyways, in this video we are going to discuss where the CFR's funding comes from. Spoiler alert, when thinking of CFR, think of Carnegie, Ford, Rockefeller. We will also examine its corporate program that allows a business to pay money in return for closed-door talks with previous and sometimes current members of government. I know what you're thinking again. That sounds illegal as fuck. It can't possibly be happening. Well, you're wrong again. It is happening. Another reason to keep watching. We will lay out CFR's quest for one world government, control of your life via the climate scam, influence on media, and lastly, we will blow your mind with how many presidential elections in US history were CFR versus CFR. I know you know that Kerry versus Bush was skull and bones versus skull and bones, but just you wait. So before we get started, you must like this video, subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment, unless you worship Satan. Hit the intro.
I got flavor.
Funding for the CFR came from model citizens, bankers, financiers, and a lot of the same names involved in the creation of the Federal Reserve, such as Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, Bernard Baruch, Jacob Schiff, Otto Kahn, and Paul Warburg. Other than donations, CFR's corporate membership program is another significant source of funding for the council. The corporate membership program is divided into 3 tiers: Gold, which costs $100K a year, Silver, $75K a year, and Bronze, $50K a year. CFR's official website describes the corporate membership program like this. Founded in 1953 with 25 corporate members, the corporate program now includes more than 100 companies from various industries and regions of the world. Through CFR's unmatched convening power, the program links private sector leaders with decision makers from government, media, non-governmental organizations, and academia to discuss issues at the intersection of business and foreign policy. Through exclusive events and engagement with globally respected experts, executives at member companies expand their knowledge and understanding of international affairs and foreign policy as they relate to their business interests. These business leaders have access to the Council's intellectual capital through briefings with CFR Fellows, rapid response discussions led by CFR Fellows and other experts, Foreign Affairs magazine, and hundreds of meetings hosted each year virtually and in New York, Washington, and other major cities throughout the United States and around the world. Executives from member companies are offered briefings with CFR Fellows, invitations to events covering a wide range of foreign policy issues, and professional development opportunities for young professionals and rising executives. The highlight of the program year is the annual corporate conference, which addresses such topics as geopolitical risk, the global economic outlook, and technological innovation. Companies at the top levels of membership also have access to a series of exclusive events and communications designed expressly for CEOs, including an annual CEO Summit.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. And fuck you, I'm out.
Noted author John Kenneth Galbraith, who resigned from the CFR in 1970, called such off-the-record talks a scandal. Why should businessmen be briefed by government officials on information not available to the public, especially since it can be financially advantageous? I'm not going to list all the companies in the 3 tiers, but here's a few noteworthy ones from each category, starting with gold. Gold, $100,000 a year. Airbus, Amazon, Bank of America, BlackRock, Chevron, Citibank, Clayton Dubilier and Rice, ExxonMobil, General Atlantic, Goldman Sachs, Google, Hess, JP Morgan Chase & Co., KPMG, MasterCard, Meta, Morgan Stanley, NASDAQ, Visa.
What the fuck is going on here?
Silver for $75,000 a year. Bayer, Blackstone, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Dell Technologies, Deutsche Bank AG, Lazard, PayPal, Royalty Pharma, Sequoia Capital, Snap Inc., Standard Chartered Bank, Thomson Reuters, Warburg Pincus.
Do you see the problem here?
Bronze for $50,000 a year. Alloy Capital, Booking Holdings, CoBank, Deloitte, the Estee Lauder Companies Inc., FedEx Corporation, Lockheed Martin Corporation, Merck & Co. Inc., Microsoft Corporation, Nike Inc., Nvidia, Pfizer, Shell, Sullivan & Cromwell, TikTok, Uber Technologies, the Walt Disney Company, Wells Fargo. It's mind-blowing the lack of awareness on this situation by the general public. Yet again, let's pull back up that quote from former CFR member John Kenneth Galbraith. Why should businessmen be briefed by government officials on information not available to the public, especially since it can be financially advantageous? During its first 50 years of existence, the CFR was almost never mentioned by any of the moguls of the mass media. And when you realize that the membership of the CFR includes top executives from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, the Knight newspaper chain, NBC, CBS, Time, Life, Fortune, Google, Businessweek, US News and World Report, and many others, you can be sure that such anonymity is not accidental, it's deliberate. Henry Luce or Luce was born in China and arrived in the US at the age of 15, was co-founder of Time Inc., which is the publisher of Time, Life, Fortune, and Sports Illustrated magazines. It is reported that Henry and his magazine empire was a devoted participant of Operation Mockingbird.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Gotcha, bitch!
To many, it would seem impossible for one entity to have influence over such a vast array of firms. That's because it is not public knowledge that founders of such behemoths as the New York Times or NBC were chosen, financed, and directed by Morgan, Schiff, and their allies. Adolf Ochs, butchered that last name, of the Times and David Sarnoff of RCA are examples of this control. Both were given financial aid early on in their careers by Cohn Loeb & Company along with Morgan Guarantee. To you and I, this might come across as deception and manipulation. To these psychopath globalists, it's called engineering consent, which is a far less abrasive description as it lacks the nefarious aura usually attached with words like deception and manipulation. Engineering consent also implies that all parties had a choice of saying yes or no in relation to what was being proposed. However, saying no could come with undisclosed consequences based on the CFR roster and participants in the earlier discussed corporate program. The CFR can easily influence an individual or company to be debanked, deplatformed, financial losses via the stock market, loss of legal services, or even the good old reliable public smear campaign via its media tentacles. There is a group within the Council on Foreign Relations which belongs to a secret society, sworn to secrecy, and which more or less controls the CFR. Anthony Sutton, professor, author. Slightly before the end of 1939, 2 years before the US even entered World War II, a committee on post-war problems was set up at the suggestion of the CFR. The committee was comprised of high-ranking officials of the Department of State, all but one were CFR members. The committee was assisted by a research staff that was provided by and financed by the CFR. This is the group that ended up designing what we call today the United Nations, the first major step to one world government. 47 CFR members were among the American delegates present at the founding of the United Nations in San Francisco in 1945. Members of the CFR in attendance included Harold Stassen, John J. McCloy, this guy's fucking everywhere, Owen Lattimore, called by the Senate Internal Security Subcommittee as a conscious, articulate instrument of the Soviet conspiracy, Alger Hiss, a communist spy, Philip Jessup, Harry Dexter White, a communist agent, Nelson Rockefeller, John Foster Dulles, John Carter Vincent, and Dean Acheson. CFR's own official theoretical journal titled Political Affairs stressed the importance of the creation of the UN by giving these direct orders in the April 1945 issue. Great popular support and enthusiasm for the United Nations policies should be built up, well organized, and fully articulated. But it is also necessary to do more than that. The opposition must be rendered so impotent that it will be unable to gather any significant support in the Senate against the United Nations Charter and the treaties which will follow. The CFR remains active today in reaching its final goal of one world government. This can't be done without abolishing the constitutional guarantees of liberty the United States currently possesses. The Council plays a special part in helping to bridge the gap between the two parties, affording unofficially a measure of continuity when the guard changes in Washington. That is a quote by Joseph Kraft, former CFR member and writer. Just in case the thought of an election bringing the progress of the CFR to a halt had crossed your mind, I would like to point out that men in the CFR also belong to such openly leftist organizations as Americans for Democratic Action, an organization of Fabian socialists, League for International Democracy, formerly known as the Intercollegiate Socialist Society. The United World Federalists were renamed to World Federalists USA in the 1960s, then to World Federalists Association in the 1970s, and eventually to Citizens for Global Solutions, which is active today.
Ours is a planet in crisis, suffering grave problems unable to be managed by nations acting separately in an ungoverned world. It's become urgent for the world's people and governments to join in achieving a new level of global cooperation, such as only can be sustained by a commitment to the planet as a genuine community. We make that commitment and call on our fellow citizens and governments to do the same. As World Federalists, we view the world as one society, embracing all of humanity in all of its diversity. We affirm that the ideals and principles of community life, which are basic to civilized existence, can and must be applied to international relations. We also affirm our determination to exercise our rights and responsibilities as citizens of the whole world in order to achieve the high purposes of the United Nations.
This is the group that ended up designing what we call today the United Nations, the first major step to one world government.
We now join our regularly scheduled programming already in progress.
The same way capitalist bankers are not afraid to do business with entities that on paper should be their mortal enemies, such as socialist and communist countries, the CFR takes in all political aisles and ideologies into its membership ranks. The bankers and CFR example clearly show that the puppet masters higher up on the totem pole are in control of all sides of opposing issues. Professor Donald Gibson is quoted as saying, "By the early 1960s, the CFR, Morgan and Rockefeller interests, and the intelligence community were so extensively interbred as to be virtually a single entity. The CFR is also allied with major foundations and think tanks. Allied foundations include the Gates, Rockefeller, Ford, and Carnegie foundations. And on the think tanks list, you can find the Rand Corporation, which is known for its doublespeak, like war is peace, and also the Hudson and Brookings Institutes. That's going to be the shortened list for now. We're going to move on to other business. During congressional hearings on the National Environment Policy Act of 1969, none other than J.C. Harrar, then president of the Rockefeller Foundation and CFR member, advocated the United Nations developing an international program for dealing with worldwide pollution. Other lobbyists who hopped aboard the train for more government controls were financed by the Ford Foundation, which is more closely interlocked with the Rockefellers than two cokeheads with one baggie of coke. With the Club of Rome being founded in 1968, the club's ranks slowly started to interbreed with the CFR membership, policies started to meld, and men from both organizations continued to obtain government positions. When thinking of the Club of Rome, think of the Department of the Globalists that is in charge of the climate scam. More on them in another video or video series.
Random fun fucked up fact.
The CFR in the 20th century was known for having a loud and proud anti-communist stance. So loud and proud that John D. Rockefeller, CFR member, financier, board of director member, and later honorary chairman who donated the land that the United Nations headquarters in New York sits on, sent his best public relations man, Ivy Lee, to try and reshape Hitler's public image as positive. Hitler also apparently had a picture of Henry Ford on his desk according to some researchers.
Presidential races that were CFR versus CFR.
1952 and 1956. CFR Adlai Stevenson challenged CFR Eisenhower. 1960 it was CFR Nixon versus CFR Kennedy. 1968 Nixon CFR versus Hubert Humphrey CFR. 1972 Nixon CFR versus George McGovern CFR. 1976 Gerald Ford CFR versus CFR/Trilateral Commission Jimmy Carter. 1980 Reagan defeated Carter. Reagan was not CFR, but his VP George H.W. Bush was. Reagan then staffed his office with 313 CFR members. 1984 Reagan vs. Walter Mondale. Walter Mondale CFR. 1988 George H.W. Bush CFR, former VP, former CIA head vs. Michael Dukakis CFR. 1992 George H.W. Bush vs. Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was CFR, Bilderberg Trilateral Commission. Clinton appointed just under 100 CFR members to office when he won. 1996 Bill Clinton, CFR, Bilderberg Trilateral Commission vs. Bob Dole, CFR. 2000 Al Gore, Skull and Bones, CFR vs. George W. Bush, Skull and Bones. Bush, not a CFR member, but he surrounded himself with them. Condoleezza Rice, Dick Cheney, Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz, Louis Libby, Colin Powell, and Robert Zoellick, all CFR members, all part of his staff. 2004 Bush, Skull and Bones vs. John Kerry, Skull and Bones, CFR, and Bilderberg. 2008 Obama vs. John McCain, CFR. Welp.
Booyakasha!
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Seriously, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't. The next organization in line is the Trilateral Commission. So for now, like a fat kid in dodgeball, I'm out. Hit the outro.
Motherfucker, I'm